Hey guys, today I will talk about a very interesting topic that occurred to me last night while I was at a gym. Basically, if we go back historically, how humans formed into a bigger entity or larger entity called society, it's pretty much part of the evolution. Humans in itself, if you look at one individual, one human, it's not really efficient. Like we're not. If you just look at one person, we cannot be on the top of the food chain. If you look at the evolution, those are surviving who are the strongest. And since we humans, we don't have claws, we don't have much to survive in the nature on our own. Just put someone into the forest or in the jungle, they're going to be dead in a day. So humans realized that in order to survive as a species, we have to team up, and we have to use our brain how to work together. And that's when societies were formed, to hunt together, to after a while socialize together, and in order to maintain a healthy or somewhat healthy society, humans decided that they should have laws within that society. And the laws, there are many reasons why laws are in place. Most of the time, sometimes it's just a moral question that humans agree that we should not eat each other, for example, and do crazy stuff, right? So there should be a common agreement on accepting the laws that are in place within the society. Some laws are there to not have a unfair advantage to others. So there are many reasons why laws are in place, but the point is that the members of society usually agree on that those laws should be kept. At the same time, those laws are in place because humans are inherently flawed. And humans are just, we are part of the animal kingdom. We are part of this thing we call nature, and we have the desire to survive. That's since we're born, we have the desire to survive. And in order to survive, we can do anything. And from this point of view, humans are extremely creative and can be extremely ruthless if you think about it. So what humans can do to survive is just beyond our imagination. Most of the time, we don't even want to accept that. By the way, it's interesting how I saw this in the past few decades, that we as humans trying to isolate ourselves and distance ourselves from being human, which is weird because I know humans can be disgusting. Humans are monsters most of the time. We're just individually trying to take those monsters within us under control. So we're not playing it out every single day. But at the same time, you can only control yourself to a certain extent. You won't be able to change fully who you are. There are some basics that are just in you, deep in you, and which goes back hundreds or thousands or even probably millions of years, depends on what theory we look at, how old humanity is. So in general, humans are about surviving, and they will do anything to survive. So that's why we lie, that's why we cheat, that's why, I mean, there are many reasons behind that. We can talk about that as well. But my point is that these things are just second nature to us. Like we really do these because we think this helps us, and most of the time they do. So if you look at the laws today, and if you look at the laws back in the day, uh, basically everyone is a criminal. And obviously the laws apply to everybody, should apply to everybody. And still, who got caught historically was basically came down to who was the lamest at having doing the crime. If you were not that smart, if you were not that careful, or you just had a bad day, then you were caught. So having doing a crime is not enough to get in jail. You also have to be caught. And because of this, we had a somewhat of a interesting mixture of the intention of punish those who commit crime on one end, and on the other end, we all know everybody makes crimes. Most of us, we just make small ones. Sometimes, by the way, we commit crime while we don't even know. Probably there is some rules that we're not familiar with, and we just break it every day. But for example, a very good and very simple example is the speed limit. like no one really strictly keeps the speed limit. Still, there's like a mutual agreement, the silent mutual agreement that we're okay with it because no one is doing it, and it's very difficult to enforce. But because of the nature of the law enforcement, how you catch someone, how you get evidence to prove that you did that crime, that's just not that easy. Like humans are creative in terms of how they hide their misbehaviors. So this is his story, right? This is history. This is how historically societies were built. Humans are doing a lot of small mistakes in all their lives. Humans are breaking the law every single day, etc., etc. Just because the limitation of the law enforcement capacity, this was never really a problem, because like probably the most outrageous crimes were punished most of the time, or those that are very visible, those are usually punished by law enforcement. But there are more to it. That's my point. And my idea was, what I was thinking about yesterday, is that we come to an age which is absolutely unique, and we never had anything like this before. And the consequences are completely unknown, and it's just unpredictable. But if you ask me, the outlook it's not looking bright. So we don't know where this will go, but definitely there will be some major problems around that. What I mean by that is technology got to a point where the level of surveillance that law enforcement has on you is just beyond your imagination. It's almost impossible to understand the level of surveillance that we're surrounded with in modern society. And I'm not even bringing in the Chinese monitoring system, which was just introduced a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if you guys heard about it, but in China they're introducing a social credit where if you're misbehaving, then you have a certain social credit which can be decreased, and then there will be significant punishment based on those social credit. And not just for you, which is unbelievably smart. They are not just punishing you, but they can punish your surrounding social context as well, which is brilliant. I mean, it's an evil genius plan. Like most of us, if you do something and you're the only one who get punished, you can live with that. But if they say that they need to punish your loved ones or your social circles, that's a different story. Most of the time, that's just even more troubling. So I think this idea is somewhat of an evil genius plan. But anyway, they have their own reasons why they do that. And by the way, I am absolutely certain that this is something that not just China, but the whole West world, including the States and Europe, is building. We have the same level of, probably even more, an even better level of surveillance than China has, with face recognition, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to get to is that it's very interesting to see how technology is changing our life, and I'm convinced that we haven't seen the majority yet, what will come. What I mean by that is that if you take into account that everybody is a criminal, and I am super convinced about it, and I'm not saying you're like a mass murderer or something, but you break the crime almost every day, you just don't know really. Or you think it's not a big deal, right? Even though the law says blah blah blah, you say, okay, it's not a big deal. What's going to happen? Now what interesting to me is that today, the modern society and the law enforcement forces have the capacity to monitor every single tiny little mistake that you make, every single tiny mistake that you make. I'm talking about the tiniest, smallest thing that you don't even remember. Like what did you do today? Like they're gonna come back and say, okay, you did something here at 10 in the morning, and you say, I'm not even remember. I don't even know where I was. So they have this capacity right now. But what the interesting part is that we still have crime. And that's what I was thinking about, like, how is that possible that we have this enormous, outrageous capacity to get information, get intel on anybody on this planet Earth, and we still have crime. And there are two opinions that I had about it, like the two versions of why this is happening. One is that because they realize that they don't have the capacity to jail everyone, because if they would actually enforce the law at a level of the strict level of what's written in the book, then probably everybody would be in the jail in a month probably. So that's one reason. But if that's the case, then who's going to choose who's going to jail and who's not? Because at this point, what they do, I am super convinced about this, they are collecting data 24/7. Just think about it, how many microphone and camera you have around you, how many sensors you have around you at any given moment of your life. It doesn't matter if you still live in the city, there's no way, even if you turn off your mobile phone, there are many, many, many mobile phones around you and TVs, and just think about the Internet of Things, which are all about sensors. So we have so many sensors, so many digital equipment around us that is just, they can listen to you 24/7, they can monitor you 24/7 visually and audiovisual. They can have sensors beyond those two things. So what they do is they collect data, and what they do with the data, because they are not getting you to court because you broke the law, but I think they're collecting all your small mistakes, and when the time comes, those mistakes will be useful. That's what I think. I think we got to a point, which is so bizarre, is that everybody's a criminal, and they have proof of that, and they have data on that, exact data that can use against you, but they're not going to. And it's just a matter of time before there is an interest to use those data against you. And then they're going to just, press one button, and all your faults and small mistakes when you broke the law in the past 10, 20 years will be right there available on the screen. With evidence, by the way, with audiovisual evidence. So it's not about like who to believe. There is an actual evidence exactly what words you said. So that's what I was thinking. Like, this is really insane and this is really crazy. I'm super certain that we don't know the social consequences of these yet. I don't know the reason why. So basically, the thought that I had is like, why we have crime still. And I know this is an absurd question because we're all criminals, but the point is that they could eliminate crime actually, but I think they realize that this is not going to happen because society and humans doing crime all the time. This also raises a lot of question about the big shot criminals and, for example, terrorism. It's just not possible that they don't have data on those events. They do. And you have to think, like, if they have that level of surveillance. And by the way, guys, don't ever forget that the technology you see out there and the technology you hear about is not what they have. They are usually, what you see is usually 5-10 years behind the actual technology that they have. It's just not public. Those things are usually never public. So that always raises a question of whether they want crime to stick with us, whether they want us to have crime. I don't know why that would be. Probably to remind us that we I don't know, fear mongering, or probably they just want to make sure that you remind yourself every day that this is not a good idea to rob a bank or to hurt someone, etc. I don't know. So but I'm sure there's a conscientious decision behind all this. Why not to use the surveillance techniques that they have today in a way where actually they can punish all crimes that are happening in the world. But again, so my point is that there's a huge conflict between the nature of humans and the capacity what technology provides us today. There's a huge conflict between these two, and it's very interesting how this conflict will get resolved, because this is not communicated to us at all. As members of society, we don't know anything about this. We just live in this world and we try to survive, we do our thing, but we really never get communicated by these new rules. Because these are completely new rules, we have never had an opportunity like this before in humans' history. So anyway, that was my thought about it. It's a very interesting very interesting time to live in. and experience this whole crazy, bizarre world. And I'm wondering how this will impact our society. I'm wondering where this will go. But in my opinion, this cannot go too good. There must be something at the end which is not good. But I also feel that those who construct these new rules are aware of this, so they're not pushing beyond the limit. They try to keep this within limit, so society won't really boil. And social engineers are pretty careful of how to implement new rules that will impact the everyday life of the society. All right, guys. So that was me, Sendai, for today. That was my thoughts yesterday. It's an interesting topic, and technology is really changing our life, even though if we're not even aware of it. I mean, we are. Obviously, cell phones is a huge advancement, but I think it's way deeper than this and way beyond that. Anyway, thank you guys. Sendai out.